Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Bekiim Halacha 4, day 11, page 28. Halacha Yod-Bet, Siman Kafei. Okay, Siman 25. Wearing tefillin when leaving the home for synagogue. Okay, the Holy Zohar Kadosh teaches. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, when someone wakes up in the morning, puts tefillin on his head and his arm, wraps himself with a mitzvah with a tallit, and goes to the doorway of his home, and meets the mezuzah, which has the name of Hashem, 4 holy angels accompany him and escort him to the Bet Knesset. They announce, Tenu kavod, give kavod to the king's son, the Ben Melech. Yeah, that's what it says. Give a kavod to the Ben Melech. Yeah, so he says, right, Tenu kavod le Ben Melech, letzurat apnim shel Melech. Person who carries the image of the king's face. A Holy Spirit embraces him and announces, Yisrael asher b'cha et par. You are Yisrael about whom I pride myself. Right? Not only that, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes pride in him and announces throughout all the worlds, look at my son, what he does in my world. But if someone enters the synagogue having left his home without tefillin, so then he says, right? The Blessed One says, where's my awe? The person is guilty of false testimony. This is a powerful Zohar HaKadosh, you understand? Powerful Zohar. Okay? Situation today. Look at the footnote number 14. Situation today. All the Acharonim, especially the Sephardic Poskim, whether it's Chesed Alafim, Ben Ishchai, Kaf HaChaim, and more, study this practice in the name of the Zohar. Nevertheless, most people do not follow these instructions, despite this great spiritual advantage that the Zohar says, right? So it's ignored. Why? The Levushim Mordechai suggested that people no longer observe this practice since they might encounter sewage or rotten garbage in the street on the way to the synagogue. This is not a valid excuse, however. First of all, if someone passes through such a place while wearing his tefillin, it is necessary only to cover the tefillin until he passes the area, as explained below, right? Furthermore, with today's modern sewage systems, it is highly unlikely for there to be any such problem in the first place, as explained below in footnote Halacha number 18. Perhaps the reason for not observing this practice is that a person might pass by a woman who's not properly dressed, and you're not allowed to see a woman such a way when you're putting on tefillin, as explained in Shulchan Aruch. Nevertheless, it is not a valid excuse for failing to observe this exalted practice. Anyone should be able to avoid confronting such sites, especially if he lives in a neighborhood with the residents or people who observe mitzvot, especially so during the cold winter months when everyone dresses warmly. Okay? According to the common custom, back on the top, in the United States, for most residents in the United States, there should be no problem at all observing this practice. The person could go directly from his home to his car and drive directly to the parking lot of the synagogue without encountering any sewage or women. Many people have attached garages, so they do not even step out of their homes. It's mamash, like, they go straight to the car. What's more is when going to Shachrit early in the morning, there's very few people in the streets. Thus, there's no real excuse not to do this. While driving, however, it is important to remain aware that all the time he's wearing tefillin. Okay, next, continue above. According to the common custom, even if someone is wearing talit katan, he still has to put on the talit gadol and tefillin while at home, and then he leaves for the synagogue while thus adorned and crowned. Okay, as it says in footnote 15, above in Halacha 7, we explained that according to Shulchan Aruch, that as long as wearing talit katan, so all he has to put on is talit is the tefillin, and then talit gadol he can put in the synagogue. But the common custom of the Mikubalim is no, that you do everything over there. Halacha 13. Okay, the practice of leaving home while already wearing the talit and tefillin is more important than the mitzvah of being the first 10 in the synagogue. Thus, if people arrive at the synagogue and it's still too dark to put on talit and tefillin, it's still better to remain at home until later. Forgo this mitzvah of being the first 10, and it's possible to fulfill the mitzvah of being the first 10 and during Mincha and Arvit. Be the first 10 during Mincha, being the first 10 during Arvit. Okay? 16. The Kaf HaChaim Sofer added the mitzvah being among the first 10 in the synagogue includes staying there to pray. It doesn't mean that you just went and you left. No, it means that you stayed there to pray, obviously. Okay, if someone comes to the synagogue to be counted among the first 10 people arriving, and then he goes to pray in a different synagogue, he doesn't get credit for it. Yeah? What about before dawn? The response of Vayashav Vayam, he comes and he says that this conflict between the mitzvah of being the first 10 and the mitzvah of leaving home while wearing the talit tefillin is applicable only after the time in the morning when there's a mitzvah to put on talit tefillin. Since either mitzvah can be fulfilled at this time, we must decide which mitzvah takes precedence. This does not mean, however, the one should wait until home until he has to put on tefillin. It is certainly commended to leave home for the synagogue before dawn and study Torah until it's time to pray, and that way one could succeed in being the first 10 in the synagogue. Although one loses the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of leaving home while wearing the talit tefillin, one cannot be faulted since it's impossible to put them on so early. There's no necessity to return home to put it on. And here we found a heter to get out of the problem. You know what it is? Come here before Amud Shachar. Because if you come here before Amud Shachar, anyway you can't put on talit and tefillin. If anyway you can't put on tefillin, you're learning Torah. And when you're learning Torah, they don't obligate you to go home to put it on again. So for you, the first 10 in the synagogue, plus, right, you're already here. So that's it. And then and you can't be faulted. It's not like your fault that you didn't do that. One second. No, you don't need to. The Kaf HaChaim Sofer is below. Okay. 1 second. So he says the Kavachim Sofer ruled that if someone went to the synagogue before dawn, he should return home to put it back on. This was the practice of Cham Yehuda Tzadka. The Rosh Yeshiva Perut. He said furthermore, the Mamar ruled that even if someone rises before dawn, it is best to remain home until he actually puts on Tallit Tefillin and then go to the synagogue. When someone leaves him home for the synagogue while already wearing Tallit Tefillin, he should make sure to kiss him on the doorpost. 17, look on the footnote. There's a ruling that Rav Chida, as brought down in Kavachim, they seem to be based on the Zohar HaKadosh emphasized the person approaching the mezuzah, which marks the holy name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, the Rav Chida added that whenever a person kisses the mezuzah, you should think of the names Shakai and Kafei Taf, which is explaining that this was a system to overcome the Yetzer Hara. The Kavachim lists a number of verses that one should recite as one passes by the mezuzah. That's the Kavachim, right? The Kafei Taf is also Ve'avta et Hashem Elokecha. Ve'avta et Hashem Elokecha et Taf. Hashem Yud Ke Vav Ke Hey Elokecha with a kaf. So that's the Kafei Taf. That's the one that we just said, the name of Hashem that a person should be having in mind. Halacha 15, the last halacha. While walking from home to the synagogue, one must make sure to remain constantly aware that one is wearing the tefillin.